remembered it this way.
Okay, 100 years ago, our grandmother, who lived in St. Louis, Agnes, Catherine, Alice, Barrett, Dara, she was named for three grandmothers. She put her 6 kids on the train in St. Louis and came west to visit her parents, who had settled just outside of Sheridan and had a little truck farm. They grew vegetables and stuff.
And he
So-
had the tanning mill.
Yeah, he did other things too to make a living.
And our mother was one of the 6 kids.
Yeah. And she
color
was only
stuff did
5
they
years
wear?
old. She was 5 years old at the time.
Didn't find it.
Green shirt.
So
They each had a wallet.
they got on the train and they came west. And while they were at grandmother's parents, grandmother Agnes, Alice, Catherine, Barrett, Dara, while they were at her parents', she collected all her outfit for the summer. And she hired a team and a wagon.
Here.
And a few days later, they had a car that took them as far as the Springs.
Does everybody know where the springs are?
And that's where they met the team and the wagon.
Okay, you guys, when you come up and hit the dirt, the pavement turns to dirt, and you got that real steep part, and you take a hard right turn, and cars park there. There's a spring that comes down. So they drive a car all the way up to there, and there waiting for them was how many wagons?
Well, they had at least one. I don't know if they had
Oh,
two.
I must have had 2.
They must have had two, but so they all got in the wagons and came up the mountains. And they came up to this area. And the reason they knew about this area and it had a cabin built during the winter is that a year before, grandfather Dara, who owned a fur company in St. Louis, had come out with his wife to visit her parents, and he'd come up here fishing, and he found that clearing down there where the original cabin was. And over the winter, he had had Mr. Hidley's Park. You've been over to see the ruins of his cabin. They had Mr. Hidley build a cabin for them over the winter of 1916, 1917. So it was 1917, she put her kids on the train and came west and got her outfit together and came up here in a wagon. And that began their coming every summer. They came up every summer. And her husband would join her for a couple of weeks during the summer, and sometimes there were other friends from St. Louis
She'd bring a woman
who would
up
come for a while.
usually.
Yeah, she brought someone up to help her, I think, at least originally. Well, Uncle Henry was only one. The kids were 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11.
And how many times would they go down to Sheridan during the course of the summer?
None.
So they
None.
come up here for how many months? 2 months?
2 months. Yeah.
2 months with all their supplies for 2 months. So how did they do that without refrigeration?
That's a
They
good
dug
question.
a hole. They did dig a hole. I had a spring house over there.
Yeah.
Where we dug it later that would keep things cool, but you didn't bring things that had
No,
to
they
be-
brought up powdered milk and flour and hams,
And canned goods.
spam, a lot of canned goods,
Canned
and that kind of thing. And they had a great big tin box on the porch. The box was about almost the size of one of these
Oh,
tables.
it was.
But it was a little lower, and in that tin box was a 20-pound chunk of Hershey's chocolate. And so for dessert, they could each take the screwdriver and go out and chip off a piece. That was their dessert.
I think
That
would
was
accidentally
Grandfather
slip.
Johnson's fort.
Grandfather Dara.
Dara's fort. Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
He gave them candy. He fed his kids candy. Go
And
ahead.
Then we can jump ahead to the time when the next generation started coming up.
So your great grandmother
You're speaking to
all the kids here.
G3s.
So
G4?
G3s, just the G4 to the G4s. Your great grandmother. So they'd come up here every summer of her life, except she missed a few years. What were the years that she missed?
Well, the years we missed were the years
did
during World War II, but that's down
Yeah,
on the
so
line.
those are the only years she missed, and her whole time of coming every summer, except when you couldn't get tires for your car
Or gas.
and when you couldn't get gasoline.
During
she
the
came
war.
up every single summer of her life. So
And we were just talking about the fact that the way we know
Yeah,
it was
that's what I'm saying.
1917 was the first year that she came up here for the whole summer was when my dad, Bill Spear, flew up to Sheridan on Western Airlines and had a cousin who was a crop duster bring him up in a plane and land on Hidley's Park. And it was so exciting, the plane buzzed the cabin. We all ran out. The plane went around, came around and, dipped his wings to us. And then we ran for Hidley's Park as fast as we could because we knew that's where they intended to
We
land.
always had a log across down there.
But we never made it. Daddy was always out walking toward us by the time we got over there.
Carrying
But
that big
here's the
thing of
thing, the
ice
grown-ups baked a cake for us. And the cake said, from wagon to plane, 1917 to 1947.
Wow.
So it was 47 that he flew in.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, here's a couple questions I want to ask all of you siblings. First of all, give us one memory if you're growing up that is most stands out to you.
Oh, goodness.
I mean, there's tons of them, but just one memory. Tell us a story about when you were growing up here as a kid, and you would have been roughly a lot of these G4 kids' age. Some story that stands out in your mind of being with cousins. And we'll have a few questions. Then I'm going to open up questions for everybody. So be thinking of a question you want to ask them.
I vividly remember 1949, the forest fire that started just down the road here. And a group of us were down in 1949, how old was that, 11? And we were down at the lower cabin and all the grown-ups, that's the only divisions we had then, we're up here with little kids making you take a nap.
No,
you
I
were
was
playing?
down there with you.
And we
Making
looked
up a
up
play.
and saw smoke. And we looked again and it wasn't coming from the upper cabin, as if they had made a fire. So we tore up the hill and got Aunt Jane and whoever else, Mom and Dad were down in town.
Mary Kay.
Yeah, got and she drove.
Aunt Mary Kay came running
Oh,
down with
yes.
a bucket and
Yes.
a shovel. She was going to throw.
But by the time we saw it, it was
way
at least
out of control.
half the size of this tent
Tent.
and burning furiously. So we hot when we drove past it because it was right by that edge of the road. We went down to Spiro Wigwam right down here and called down to town. And they realized what we had. That's right, that old phone. And one of those phones where you pick it up and
Anybody on?
anybody there? Who will listen? Somebody called and got the forest.
The rangers
people up
somewhere,
here, the
yeah.
rangers up here.
Were you guys the first people to see the fire?
Yeah, we were.
And we had seen a white camper go by about an hour before.
Half an hour to an hour
And it had
before.
gone up to
Well, we didn't know where it had
coffee.
gone.
Coffee.
No, we don't. We never saw it again. Anyway, but so it was, and Aunt Jane just kept laying on her horn the whole time. Beep, 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 all the way down. I don't know. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And Elizabeth and Janie had taken a ride and were down there getting us some ice cream and said, who is that crazy
Person.
driver? Crazy person that would be beeping so much. So they got, the grown-ups got a cabin for us down at the Wigwam.
Spiro.
And Spiro, yes. And we slept on blankets and on the floor and some
Everywhere.
people on, Lindsay, come here, baby.
Well, do you remember Daddy?
Daddy, we had an Army carry-all. He wasn't up here at the time. Mother had gone to town to meet him, coming in on Western Airlines. And we couldn't wait for him to get up because we just thought he could fix everything,
He can stop the forest
And
fire
we-
himself
Right.
single-handedly.
Well, he did up.
We thought he could.
We sat at that Spiro and watched the other end of the park, hoping, praying for that carry-all to show up quick. And finally he came, and they came up, and he came up, and he drove through the fire to bring out mattresses and everything for us to sleep on at Spiro. And then he went back to get some more stuff, and my mother went with him, and Aunt Mary Kay. Aunt Mary Kay had left her wedding rings, on the wall of the cabin down there, where after washing dishes. And so she went in to get her rings, and Mother was grabbing some more blankets and stuff.
Just
and they came out,
frantically.
and Daddy had the wheel off of the car. He had taken the whole wheel off because there was something not right.
He was fixing the brakes.
Was he? Was he really?
Well, they needed fixing.
Yeah.
Right then. Well, Mother and Aunt McCain are almost passed out. You know, they'd driven through the fire to get up here. And here he was with the wheel off the vehicle that was going to take them all out. But anyway, he got it going. And he saved the day, you all. He stayed up here all night. And the men wanted to leave who were helping him. Because the fire had crowned and it was sweeping up this way like this. And it came clear down and charred. There was actually some charring done on the back of the bunkhouse. But, you know, those men wanted to leave.
Yeah, actually, they said they were leaving, and your grandfather said, "You will not leave. You will stay here." No, we're leaving, and he actually was threatening them with physical violence. You will stay and fight this fire. Otherwise, our cabin would have burned down.
Yeah,
so
they stayed.
even though he's a very gentle man, he said, "You will stay, and you will." He threatened them. He threatened them. You guys leave.
How are they fighting the fire? Like with
The pond.
buckets of
They were sucking water with.
They were standing on the cabin
With the saddle blankets too, hitting the sparks off.
But that's how they did it. But
Got up.
they fought the fire with pond water, and they had these pumps, and they were going to take their pumps. And he says, "You will not take." That's what he says. "You will not take your pumps. I will fight the fire. You're not going to take those out." And he threatened them, and they said, well, we better stay because we're not going to let him use the pumps. So that's what it did. So
They still have on the roofs.
yeah, and they again the back of the bunkhouse. The fire went right down to the back of the bunkhouse, and then right up on that hill up there. So it circled this whole piece of property and went up and burned everything beyond it. But he did save it. It was
He
because
did.
of grandfather that these cabins are here.
Well, Oliver Levesque was up here as well.
Yeah.
The man who took care of the reservoir.
Oliver Levesque was an interesting guy. You guys would have liked him.
You would have.
He could handle a double bit axe. You know what it is? A sharp on both sides.
Yeah.
He could swing it like this and just go right through trees. It was remarkable. That's how they fought fire. They knocked the trees down and cut paths, and then they'd stay and try to keep it from crowning anymore.
Then they
When the
brought
fire
them. Do you know
crowns
what
goes up
crowning
the top,
is?
it goes with the wind,
Faster.
and it jumps
And the
from
top's
tree to
crowned,
tree,
the top's-
takes the oxygen out, and guys die.
It's actually miraculous that only 350 acres burned. I go, what stopped that fire? I mean, seriously, it burned up there. I guess the winds turned back, but it was out, which is like only that much forest when there's so much more forest to burn. So it was pretty amazing. So good stuff.